Hello, everyone. Welcome on to Branded. This is the podcast that takes you behind the scenes and beyond the brand to challenge the status quo and show the fuck up in your own life. This woman right here has 100% done this. And honestly, she's my bestie for the resty. She's my energy unicorn. That's what I just told her. I was like, I need some energy boost. And the moment we got on this call, it was like, there it was. So this is Miss Joni Newfrock, and I am super fucking excited to have this conversation today. We essentially are going to be talking about how to empower women to see their bodies differently, to see what fitness and wellness looks like from the perspective of like not the bullshit diet culture. We're going to really get vulnerable about fitness and our bodies and all the things. And Joni has all the experience to do that with being part of the Yoga Alliance, being an ACE certified personal trainer, and having almost 30 years of experience in the industry. So yay, Joni. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to have you here.
It's so great to be here. You got new theme music.
I know. Well, I did a rebrand in November, and this is what we're rolling with right now. So
that's badass.
Yeah. Well, I mean, hey, you know that's one of my things, like pivot whenever the fuck you feel like it. That's
right.
So, okay, let's start off the conversation with what did life look like for you before fitness? I mean, a lot of us have that story of that aha moment where we decided to start taking care of ourselves, but what did that look like for you?
So, like, I can't really remember too much of my life before exercising. I grew up in the country, and just being outside was part of like my daily life. And like from riding our bikes to like neighborhood games of kickball, like there was always just some form of like movement, a little bit of competition, and essentially having fun. And so like exercise was never like a hurdle that I had to like dread jumping over, because like just movement and play. And that's what I want exercise to feel like for a lot of people, is just like remembering how to connect with your body, to move your body, to feel your body, and have fun doing it. And I was a really mediocre like middle school and high school athlete. Like nothing really stuck. You know, I did teams and just kind of like performed, and never like saw it as like a career or like going anywhere. It was just like something to do after school that wasn't, you know, chores essentially. And then when I was like right around senior in high school, freshman in high school, in the country, down the street, like a big fitness center opened up, like cardio, aerobic studio, like squat racks, all of like the light fitness machines. And I was like, well, why wouldn't I go there? And so I started to like go take, you know, step aerobics classes, because this is the 90s, right? And that's what we did. A little bit of like cardio kickboxing. And like I would take the classes, sometimes like 2 or 3 a day, because it was just fun for me to do. Like I loved the leotards and the spandex.
Same.
I loved the music. I loved the choreography. Like it just like it clicked in my brain. And then like one day I just decided to go start like lifting weights downstairs, right? Like, so, you know, like most of us have done those classes where you're like either using a step or you're using like little pink 2-pound weights, and you're like shoulder raising or like lunge curls with these 2-pound weights. And so like I'm seeing the, you know, the kind of weightlifter people down on the floor doing the same thing, just with like heavier weights in their hands. And I was like, well, I want to try that. And so I would like write myself a little workout in my notebook, because I was always kind of like nerdy and I always wanted to keep like track of my volume. It was just like something to really keep my mind like connected and like just interested in it. And so I would go down there, and I found that week after week, I was getting stronger and I could lift more. And then the more that I was on like the weight floor, even though I'm like this 18, 19-year-old girl, and there's like 30 and 40-year-old men out there, you know, there's like the 20-year-olds too. Like we just started talking, and not like in a, you know, 18-year-old girl, 40-year-old man creepy way. But like I would go up and ask them like, what's a good exercise to do for my hamstrings, right? Because I'm like just using the hamstring curl machine. And he's like, do you know what a deadlift is? And I was like, no, I have no idea what a deadlift is. And so I did like my first set of deadlifts, like with just the bar at 45 pounds. And the next day I was like, oh my God, I was just bending over and standing up. And my hamstrings are like swole now.
Yeah. I am so strong now.
I'm so strong. So I started to like just change, spending less time in like the cardio studio and more time on the floor. And I just learned by watching what people were doing, right? It's like watching how many sets people are doing on like a bench press, right? And then, oh, they go from the bench press over to like the shoulder press. And so I was just kind of like, Joni see, Joni doing, writing down notes like in my notebook, and then making new workouts like for every couple of weeks. And I noticed like how much like more muscle I got, like how strong I felt, which is a really good thing to feel when you are like a vulnerable 19-year-old girl in this world, right? Who has never been told that her body is good enough, never been told that she's pretty enough, never been told that she is enough, never, like nothing culturally, I mean, not even like really in my family was ever telling me that who I was enough in this world, right? And so I was just like, well, fuck it. Then I'm going to make myself enough, or at least I'm going to try to make myself enough in this world. And, from that point to this point now, which is almost like 30 years later, like we all still struggle with, are we enough? And is our body enough? And am I pretty enough? And do I look young enough? But at least now, like I am much more in control of my own personal narrative. Mm-hmm. And that has really come from trial, error, failure, trial, error, failure, try a little bit of success, a little bit of failure, right? And it's just that sense of like, every time you fail, something doesn't work, you get back up, you build that resilience, right? You build that resilience, you stay persistent and keep moving forward. And within like just that cycle of like resilience and persistence, there is so much strength that I have learned as a woman that I haven't really gotten from anywhere else.
Yeah. Okay, so first off, I think it's a really incredible point that you made, that when we're children, being active is not even something we think about. It is organic. It's natural. We want to move our bodies. There's energy alive inside of us. Therefore, we almost have no choice but to figure out a way to move our bodies. And so being active and quote unquote exercising, before you're like in your late teens, early 20s, it just comes so naturally. And so I think it's a great point to make for women that are in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. It's going to feel different for you. Your body's not going to want to exercise and move in the same way it did as a child. So you have to approach the conversation in an entirely different manner. The reason you're doing it is different, right? Like, and we'll get into this in a minute with metabolic rates and all of this kind of stuff and how our bodies are evolving. But I think that's an excellent point to make. Like as a child, sometimes we look back 30 years later and we're like, gosh, did I just get lazy? Why don't I enjoy doing this anymore? It's like, no, your body is quite literally an entirely different body than it was before. So yes, it was fun. And it just came naturally then, because I'm same as you with gymnastics and all the things. I look back and I think, how on earth was I not waking up exhausted every day? The amount of movement and like exercise and things I was doing it's crazy to think about. But understanding that shift and that evolution of seeing what exercise actually looks like and how it evolves through the years with us, that's a really good point to make. It helped kind of give me a little bit of a light bulb moment when you said that. And then I think being in the gym can be incredibly scary for some people. And
I hear that all the time, because I teach lots of different fitness classes right now, from yoga to bar to Pilates to like HIIT classes, as well as like just strength-based classes. And everybody, like, they're like, I love coming to your classes. I love lifting weights. And I'm like, well, you can lift these 25-pound dumbbells, right? But I don't have enough weight in this studio for actually what you need. Do you have a gym membership? Yes, I do. Where do you go? Same gym that I go to now. I'm like, I never see you. They're like, I'm just scared that I don't know what to do when I get there. And I was like, do everything that we do in this class. And you don't have to do 10 things. Go in there and do 3 exercises. If you do 3 sets of barbell squats, right? 3, and for every like free weight, like bar movement, there's a machine that does the same thing, right? Yeah. And there are people that work there that are there to help you. Like, what machines can I do for my glutes? What machines can I do for my quads? Like, you don't even need to have a personal training package. You just people need to get over that fear, right? Like, I was thinking today before we were talking, we have all been scared of so many things in our lives that we have conquered, right? First dates are scary. Starting your own business is scary, right? Going back to school is, while you're with a family, is scary. But if we let our fears stop us and consume us, it's going to be a long road ahead, like a long, torturous road ahead. And so if you're scared of just going into a gym, that's in my perspective, that's a really small, it's a small fear. You can conquer that small fear. And all you have to do is be like, I'm going to go one day. If you go that one day and somebody drops a 90-pound weight on your foot, maybe it's not meant to be. Get out of there, like, green flag, to never come back again. But if you go back and yes, your heart starts beating a little bit and your breath gets short, just go in there and just like, I can do this. Mm-hmm. I can do this. I can do this. And then that one time becomes 2 times, becomes 3 times, becomes enjoyable, becomes a consistent habit.
Yeah. Well, and the point that you made about how you simply, like, you didn't know what you were doing as a young adult, but you tapped into the skills you knew you had, such as observation. You could just stand around and, be stretching, and you're like looking over, watching somebody, and, it's not, and honestly, if you went up to them and said, hey, do you mind if I watch your set? I'm trying to learn. I guarantee they'd probably be like, yeah, okay, whatever. Like, they would want to engage with you. And I do think that's a big misconception about being in the gym, that there's this heavy, like, scariness to it, which even I have sometimes, and will stop myself like, oh, well, I don't feel like going to figure out how to do XYZ. So like, I'm just not going to do it. I've caught myself in that sort of self-sabotage cycle before too. But I did want to point out that, like, using a skill like observation can be the thing that pushes you through that fear, especially if you're scared to talk to somebody about it. Like, maybe you've never been in the gym and you think your technique is bad and whatever. Like, you're projecting your fear and you're afraid to ask somebody for help. Okay, well, observe, see what other people are doing, and then go try it with, a lesser weight, probably.
Yeah.
Don't grab a 70-pound, dumbbell, but so I think that was a really good point with the gym, because that's a big stopping point, especially for a lot of women. And of course, awareness is everything in life. So if you're at a gym and you feel uncomfortable, maybe that's not your gym, right? Like, there are some gyms that are, for sure, they're like bodybuilder, the intensity's there. And then there are some that are much more relaxed and just have a different vibe. And so I think that keeps people away too, is they're not willing to just like try out a few different spaces. It's okay to cancel a membership. Like, you can go somewhere else.
That's right. Start with a trial membership, or just arrange scout out your gym by their website. Their website is going to tell you a lot, right?
True.
Gyms have so much more to offer than just like a weight room and classes. Like, my gym has a steam room and a sauna. And there are some days I go and I take a yoga class, and then I take a shower and I take a steam, because I like the gym. So it's not like you have to just go there looking for one thing, but find a place that maybe has a Pilates class, right? Something that you can kind of dip your foot in the pool, a gateway class, yoga, maybe a bar class. Go in and just start to feel out the community, right? See if it's the right place. Maybe do like a trial week or a trial month. And then you're going to start to meet people, because in general, people that go to like fitness classes or into fitness, a lot of them are not scary, like egocentric people, but they're really friendly, community-based people, especially the women. Like I wind up talking to women in the locker room all the time, right? Just because I don't know, maybe that's just who I am. And I talk to the postman when he comes and drops the mail off at my house too. But just like start to dip your foot in the pool. It's not like you have to go from never been to a gym to like all of a sudden you're on a bench press, right? You just take those baby steps, but like letting fear and letting everything that you have previously thought or previously heard stop you is like, is that serving you? Is that going to get you to the next step on actually where you want to be? The other thing that I hear all the time from women is, well, I don't want to get all bulky, right? All the time. And I just want to tell you, ladies, if you're going to put on like bodybuilding muscle, you are eating and training in a very specific way. You don't lift 90, you don't do 50 push-ups and all of a sudden you're a bodybuilder. Like that is a very specific way to train and to build your body, right? It's all different kinds, so many different kinds of ways. So like we all want to put on muscle. I believe we all should want to put on muscle because muscle is quality of life. Muscle keeps us strong. And as we age, right, you are going to need to be able to move things, whether it is your kid or whether it is a 50-pound bag of mulch that you bought for your garden, right? You want to be strong. It is how we keep our body slowly aging, right? I see all the time, like 30-year-old men and women that are in pain, right? They sit at their desks a lot throughout the day. They have no lower body strength. They have no core strength. And then they're like, oh, I'm going to go play softball with my friends. And they wind up getting injured because they don't have a frame and a build that can support them. I don't want anybody to be in that position, right? And then also like strength building, muscle building, just muscle looks good on everybody. You look at Angelina Jolie's arms, they're not skinny. They have beautiful tone. Muscle is shape. It's shape. It's shape from the jawline down to the calves.
Oh, such a great point. And so, okay, as we get into strength training versus cardio, because I want to talk about that, but I also want to ask you, is there something that you know now that you wish you would have been told 30 years ago that it was, I mean, I know there's probably more than one, but what are some of those revelations?
So one thing that I have heard throughout my whole life that I kind of always thought that I could bullshit my way around is that you can't out-train a bad diet. Totally true. If you are drinking like a college kid on the weekend and you are eating pizza, eating burgers 2 or 3 days a week, it does not matter how many steps a day you get, how much cardio you do, and even how much weight you lift, you cannot out-train a bad diet, period. And I always blew that off. And I was like, no, I'm gonna go run 5 miles and prove you wrong. And you know what? There has not been one time in my life that I was right. The other people were always right. Because like no matter like what stimuli I presented to my body, whether it be cardio, strength training, a combination of the two, Pilates, bar, yoga, a combination of all 5 of those, right? The whole fitness buffet. The way that I was eating, I was never going to get where I am now and where I want to go from this point forward.
Yeah. I mean, and I'm with you. I have tried to merry-go round my way around that and say, it's okay. Yeah, no, we've tried that. And, the whole concept of like calories in versus calories out, there's a place for it.
Yes, but there's more.
Right. It's a yes, but you can't have fast food every day and go run 5 miles and expect something to be different. Like it's not going to happen.
Expect to be healthy, right? Under the skin, under the muscle. And then also to be healthy and fit from the inside out.
Yeah. Ooh, okay. That reminded me of a whole nother conversation that we could
Yeah.
totally have about like the vibrational energetic field of foods. I just heard this recently and I was like, okay, this is something I knew, but it's something I needed to hear. And it was like basically dead foods versus alive foods and like how
Right.
just rampant dead foods are in our
Yeah.
culture. And it's insane whenever I looked back to like my past couple days of the foods I'd consumed. And I'm like, oh my God, like almost everything was a dead food or
Yeah.
next to dead.
Yes.
I need to be eating more live foods. And anyways, that's a whole other conversation. But
Oh.
let's talk about strength training versus cardio. I think there's a big misconception that people think, okay, I'm just going to go run on the treadmill every single day and that's health. But why isn't that like a full picture of health?
Okay, so here is a conversation I was having with a young girl a couple of weeks ago, right? She was like, I just got a gym membership, Joni. You're gonna be so proud of me. And I'm like, awesome. I am proud of you. What are you doing at the gym? And she's like, I get on the rower and I row for 45 minutes. And I was like,
oh my gosh.
And then I was like, you got to get on the floor. You have to start lifting weights. And she was like, well, I don't want to be all like, and I was like, yeah, you're so funny. Right. The same thing I was just saying. And then she started talking to me about like her like mental health. And she was like, I don't know what to do on the floor. I need to move. And so as like, I started to come at her with my agenda of protein and weights, right? It occurred to me, if being on the rower is what got her into that gym, if that was her gateway, then I should say, girl, you go row. You get, if cardio is what is your gateway, because it was mine at 16 years old, right? Then get to the gym. But now I'm 46 years old, I think 46 years old, right? My 46-year-old body is vastly different than my 16-year-old body. And I'm not even body. My 46-year-old life is vastly different than my 16-year-old life. Because the way I look at it now, my 46-year-old body is stronger, more capable, more balanced, more healthy than it was at 16, 100%. My mind too. But at 46-year-old, I own a business, a very busy business. I have a side hustle. I own a very old home that constantly needs work and it's got a big ass yard around it. And I have a daughter and 2 dogs. So what I just told you is about the mountain of stress that I have built underneath my life, right? And most of this is like manageable stress, right? Like I can manage being a mother most moments of the day. I can manage being a wife. I can manage being a business owner. But there is a lot coming at me at all times, right? All of these things are a form of stress. Now, exercise is a form of stress on the body, right? Because we are putting our body, whether it be our heart and our breath rate or our muscle tissue, we are progressively giving it more and more challenging stimuli, asking for it to change, okay? So when we are doing cardio, okay, and say that our calorie intake and our base metabolic rate, like what our body burns calorie-wise if we just hang out and Netflix and chill all day, say that is 1,600 calories a day of just your body digesting food and breathing and just keeping like your body alive, right? So if I start to eat, okay, so I can only eat 1,600 calories. And then I'm going to do cardio to start to lose weight off of my body, right? So then your Apple Watch tells you that your cardio burn is 800 calories, which it might not be. Like these are not 100%. So just like be mindful of that. So then you're thinking that you're in this calorie deficit, right? So, okay, cool. Now, when you're in that calorie deficit, here's like 2 ways of thinking. Well, now I can eat 800 calories more and I can stay the same weight, right? Which is, I don't know, that's kind of what I always said. I was like, sweet, ice cream pizza, come on, glass of wine, bring it, right? Or we're thinking, okay, so what I'm doing is I am like burning fat right now, just laying here like watching Netflix. As we continue to do that, because that form of cardio, right, is a form of stress, our body adapts to that stress. That's what our body is doing, is it's constantly adapting to the stimuli that we give it, which is why like the first time that you say you do that spin class and you burn that 800 calories, if you're continuing that same kind of exercise, right, that hour-long or 45-minute spin class, if you're doing that for like 5 months, your calorie burn is diminishing returns because your heart and lungs don't have to work so hard because you're leveling off and you hit a plateau. So your Apple Watch might not show that, but you are still in this like, I can eat more or I'm burning fat. What is actually happening underneath your skin is that your body, the weight that you lose is not fat. It is water, right? Sweat, but muscle is expensive to have on your body. And what I mean by that is it takes more calories and like protein, quality calories to keep muscle on your body. So if you're doing that spin class, right? And your body is like, well, we have all this muscle, right? Like she has like, girl's got great glutes, but she's not really using her glutes in a progressive way, like asking them to work more and more and more. Then what we're going to do is we're going to pare down the muscle on her butt. And as we're breaking down the muscle in her butt, right, we're lowering your metabolic rate. We're lowering that 1,600 calories, which nobody wants to burn less calories just by Netflix and chilling. And then as you lose that muscle, your body starts to store more fat because fat is fuel for the body, right? So at this stage in our lives, we don't want to store more fat and burn more muscle. We want the opposite. Now, with strength training, there is like no ceiling, because if you can bench press 95 pounds, 3 sets of 10, 1 week, the next week you go in, you're going to put more weight on the bar because it's hella addicting, right? You don't want to stay at the same place. What more can I do? What more am I capable of? So you're going to put at least 5 pounds. You're going to put at least 10 pounds. You're going to start to build more muscle. Now, when you're fueling your body properly, and hopefully we have time to get to that, and you're putting on muscle, that 1,600, which is just a totally fictitious number, base metabolic rate, your calorie maintenance, you're increasing that, right? Because you start bench pressing, you start squatting, you start deadlifting, you're building more muscle on your body, and not like huge muscle, just like a normal amount of like sexy ass muscle. You have to eat to fuel that, right? I love to eat. When my nutrition coach said, Joni, you're not eating enough, I was like, Adam, I love you. The only person in my life who told me I wasn't eating enough. He was like, you could eat a little bit better in some places, right? And it was get more protein, get more carbs, get more calories. And at first I was like, do I, like, he said that, I loved it. And I was like, do I actually believe that? That's a really scary thing. He was like, increase it by 400 calories. I was like, that's a lot. And it took a while for me to see the difference, but 4 to 5 weeks later, I had more energy. I felt better. I could lift. I could lift more. My body wanted to sleep more, because when you put muscle on, it makes you tired. And so if you can't sleep at night, don't exercise more cardio, more stress. Go lift some weights, because when your body, you need to sleep and you need to build that muscle. And then the one more thing I'll add on to this trifecta here is that what I often hear, what I have thought and believed and now have recovered from, is that when you're lifting weights, so say I lift weights for 75 minutes, I don't necessarily feel like I did 75 minutes of a spin class, right? I don't feel like I got a good workout. Okay, good. You shouldn't. You should not walk out of the gym in pain, right? And if the idea that we have to beat ourselves up, right? Break ourselves down and immediately feel that to feel good about ourselves. And I have been there for so many years, so I am not shaming anybody. I am saying, me too, sister. But that is like, that was something that really made me question how I'm thinking about myself. You know?
That's a really fucking good point, because I think a lot of people, they think they're not doing enough. So then they kill themselves, then they burn out, then they don't go back. And it ends the cycle. So, okay, I just want to identify a point here about cardio burning what you want to hang on to, right? Versus building muscle to then turn around and actually burn the fat. Like, and that was something for me that I had to get my head around when it came to strength training, because even though I came from the world of competitive athletes and all of that, and I'm used to the world of conditioning your body, I still never really used anything other than my own body as weight. So the idea of lifting weights just never appealed to me, because I only ever saw it through the lens of weightlifters, bodybuilders, right? I never saw it through the lens of the average everyday person who simply wants to create a muscular structure that can sustain a body as it ages. Those are very different perspectives. And I don't think enough people talk about how it is the average everyday person who should be lifting weights.
Yes.
And all we see are the people who are lifting weights because they're bodybuilders. Like, and so there's this, like, I don't know if it's education, right? And that's the whole point of this podcast. The reason we're sharing this conversation is so people can have that awareness around it. But I think it's a huge miss for the fitness industry that the conversation is not had with enough regular looking people to say, hey, it's okay if you're only lifting the bar. It's okay if there's only 5-10 extra pounds on it. Like, you actually want to start small. Get the actual structure of your body used to those movements. I mean, like you said, when you first did a deadlift with just the bar, the next day your hammies were screaming at you going, holy shit, like, what did we do? Did we walk up 500 flights of stairs? No, you just moved your body in a different way, and you used a muscle in a way it hasn't been used for, and that's the thing, like bending over and lifting things, getting up off the toilet, walking up and down stairs. Like, these are functions that if you don't build muscle throughout your adult life, you will end up losing that mobility.
Yes, injuring yourself. And at this place of, like, for me, middle age, like, it could be 10 years where I am caring for my elderly parents, right? And I need to be able to move my dad around, right? And this is the biggest thing. Like, you don't have to want to bodybuild or like bikini competition or competitive power lift, but being strong and having like a muscular body that's capable is how we age well. Building muscle balances your hormones because it is a controlled stress on the body if you're doing it properly. Like, there's bad ways to do it or just better ways than others. Cardio is such an intense form of stress on the body that it is so likely that your body is shooting like with cortisol after, right? Which is another thing that just throws off our internal balance, right? Wreaks havoc on our menstrual cycle. And then also makes us store fat because that's what cortisol is meant to do. There is so much science on why strength training is favorable to like a cardio-based workout regimen.
Yeah. And so I just want to be clear, like, we're not saying don't do cardio, but what we are saying is don't think that strength training is not part of the equation. Like, if you love to run, go run once, twice a week or something. But if you're actively, let's say someone is actively in a weight loss, journey, doing all the cardio isn't going to get you the result. Period. Like, it just won't, because you're, like you said, you're adding this level of stress to your body doing the cardio while you're already probably depleting yourself of really important calories because you're losing weight.
So, undernourished, overworked, overburdened by your professional career, your family life, bills, like all the things.
Yeah, I know. So do we have time to talk about protein? I know.
100%.
Okay. Let's talk about protein, because I think a lot of people think protein is only animal products. I think a lot of people think that protein, just school us a little bit on the importance of it, and where are some of the places that we could find it that we're probably just overlooking?
Well, I just want to bring up something like a personal experience that's really important to me. That was a really big aha moment on how little protein that I was eating. So I, like when we first met, Sarah, I was a vegetarian, and I was years before I met you. So I was a vegetarian for around 12 years. And I delivered a healthy baby. And after having a newborn, the amount of stress that your body goes through, nursing, lack of sleep, etc., is one of the biggest forms of like mental and physical stress that I ever experienced. And my body started like declining. Injuries, like old injuries, started to come back up. Like my body was just like breaking down muscle because there was just, I was not eating properly. I was not getting enough sleep. I wasn't even exercising because there was just no energy for it.
Yeah.
But then right before COVID, so like 2019, my hair was like, the amount of hair that was in my hairbrush and my sink drain was alarming to me. And like, I choked it up, I cleaned my brush out, I got rid of the evidence, and I was like, on to the next day, right? Next day, same thing. And when the salons opened back up after COVID, I went and got my hair colored because that's what we all did, right?
Well, I stuck with the grays, but yes.
And my friend, who's my colorist, after like she washed me, she's like combing out my hair, which I hate having my hair combed because I'm so like sensitive about it. My hair was breaking, and I just like, I broke down and started crying. Like I pictured I was 42 years old, and I thought by the time that I'm 46, I was like, I'm going to have no hair on my head, or it's just going to be like lace. And I like she was like, are you stressed out? And she gave me like these shark cartilage pills. She was like, well, this is something I want you to try, and this is supposed to be helpful. And I took it, and of course it was nothing. And then when I started, so like 2 years later, when I started working with Adam, my nutrition coach, and I started eating meat about 6 to 8 months before I started working with him because I wanted to put on muscle, and I knew I had to consume more protein. When I started eating 140 to 150 grams of protein today, which is where I am, my hair has grown back like this beautiful mane that you see. And if you're just listening to this, you're missing out on this beautiful mane. But,
exactly. You need to be watching this.
I cannot believe like the strength of my nails, the tone of my skin, the brightness of my eyes, the strength of my hair. And every time I go and I sit back in my friend's chair to color, I was like, I can't believe that this is where I am. And that completely is due to the lack of nutrients, especially the lack of protein that I was getting in my diet. Because if you remember back to high school biology, protein is the building blocks of life, right? Protein is the building blocks, and carbohydrates are our fuel source. So if we are not eating an appropriate and balanced amount of those two macronutrients alone, then we are not properly fueling our bodies to be healthy, to be strong, and to combat the natural stress of life, right? And so, yes, there are multiple sources of protein. It just happened to turn out that meat, for me, in my mid 40s, it was the right time for me. Like being a vegetarian served me really well. I'm very compassionate towards the earth, towards animals, but I have to keep myself fueled and strong.
Yeah.
And so it's been challenging to find that balance. And yes, grass-fed meat and farm-raised eggs, it is totally more expensive. It really is. But I do my best to make my lifestyle and like my ethical beliefs align. And sometimes that shifts a little bit, or it's not as balanced as I would like to. I'm like, man, all I have are like these chicken thighs. I got to eat them. that's what I eat them. And then I figure out how to balance out my ethical beliefs in different kind of ways in my life, you know?
Yeah.
But why protein is so important is because you cannot maintain or build muscle without it. Like you can't turn carbohydrates into muscle. You have to have the amino acid structure to do that. Some protein is better than others. Lean protein is better than others, mostly because of the saturated fat content, right? So beef, although beef is very tasty, right? Like a ribeye versus a like grass-fed ground beef, right? The saturated fat on that is going to be just on the ground beef. It's going to be way better. Chicken, fish, tuna, like there are a lot of ways to get your protein. I work with several of my personal training clients that are like, I don't know how to eat 150 grams of protein. I'm like, go get Oikos Pro yogurt. They should sponsor this podcast, by the way. It's 30 grams of protein per serving. If you eat 2 of those in a day, which I eat 2 for breakfast, that's 60 grams of protein. It's like half of yours is done. It's not even 7 a.m., right? And so a lot of those like clients that I work with, they like to make excuses. Like, I can't do this. I'm like, no, you can. And you have to try to do it. Like, yes, it's going to be a little bit more work, but you can try to do it, right? And I also favor personally, and for everybody that I kind of counsel, like whole food protein versus powders and like shakes, right? Do I use those? 100% that I do. Like, but I want you to think about, right? Because like there's a way you can totally cheat the system. All right, so me, so smart. I'm gonna have 4 protein shakes. They're each 30 grams. That's 120 grams of protein. They're 160, 200 calories each. That's 800 calories for 120 grams of protein. My maintenance calories are 2,200 calories right now. So that means I can eat 1,600 calories of shit food all day. No, right? Like you can cheat that, right? If I was in college, I'd try to get away with that, but I'm smarter than that because like when you sit down to eat, like you're just not eating a steak. And actually, you know, sometimes you are, but you're going to put like rice or potatoes and you're going to put some vegetables on that plate too. So when you look at protein, I want you to think about all of the other like vitamins and nutrients that are with that. Usually with like a protein shake and powder, you're going to get a sugar or some kind of sugar alternative that is processed. And then you're just going to get like the amino acid, like the protein in like the nutritional panel, right? So what isn't there for you? There's not vitamin A, there's not calcium, there's not, you know, magnesium, potassium, everything else that your body needs. And yes, can you take a multivitamin and get that? Yes, you can if you just want to like cheat your way through life. But do you want like, I'll do that when I travel. Like I know I have an airport day. Like I got vitamins, I got 2 protein shakes because I don't know like what restaurants, what's going to be available, like what my layouts are going to look like, you know, all of those like uncontrollable factors. But on my best day, like when I'm home, I make sure that I am getting my green, my orange, my purple, my red, all the foods, because in addition to wanting to have a really hot bod, I also want to have like a really healthy bod and like really great skin and like organs that are going to last me for another 50 years without like surgical intervention, you know?
Yeah. No, and that's a good point to make. Like there's plenty of ways to cheat the system. And unfortunately, a lot of people are making a lot of money doing that these days. Like
protein is so expensive. And vegetarian, like pea protein versus whey protein, pea protein is twice the price. So if you want to be a vegan, vegetarian person eating X amount of grams of protein, you're going to have to pay more. Tofu is a great source of protein, but you shouldn't overconsume it because it is high in estrogen. So you just need to make sure that like your hormonal levels are good. And also it's not like you have to eat a whole brick of tofu to get like 30 grams of tofu, I think, or something like that, right? Which is a lot.
Yeah. I could never, not with the texture of tofu. Like
you gotta like, that's the thing too, is that you have to Like all of these things, like everything that's worthwhile in your life. This is like where everyone starts turn it off. They're like, oh, she's going to tell me I got to work more in my life. Right? Yes, you have to do more, but I want you to want more. And I want you to want to do these things for yourself. Like not for me, because I think it's what's best for you. But when you start to set up consistent rituals around how you eat, it, number one, becomes easier. It's like if I eat the same breakfast and the same lunch every day, I'm doing that for the same reason that Steve Jobs wore a black turtleneck and black pants every day. Yep. He didn't have to get up and be like, what incredible 5-star chef breakfast am I going to make myself with 50 grams of protein? He's like, no, I look at food as fuel, right? Mm-hmm. This protein, this 60-gram protein oats and blueberries, this is the fuel that I need to get me to 11 o'clock. 11 o'clock, I pull over to the gas station, which is my kitchen, and I fill up my tank with the next source of fuel, right? Like in our country, like we're told everything should be so incredibly glamorous. Everything should be so colorful. Everything needs to be so fancy. You need to get all your protein meals off of Pinterest. Bullshit you do, right? Ground turkey and rice in a bowl with a bunch of vegetables. That's a ground turkey taco bowl, right? Put some corn chips on it. Put your hot sauce on it, whatever you like. Boom, eat it. That is some badass fuel for your body. And protein takes longer to digest and break down, meaning it makes you stay full, right? And like we hear all the time, oh, consuming high fiber, all these things make you stay full. It actually does. And if you eat 4 ounces of turkey and a cup of rice in your vegetables, and then if you go to eat more, there's probably like an anxiety food issue around that, right? Mm-hmm. Like, if there's a reason you keep eating and you've just kind of like filled your tank, then there's another door you need to walk into. And I'm going to say this. I say this because I had to walk through that door. And that was a really scary, vulnerable door for me to walk through. But no one's going to open that door and look into that except you, right? The only person that could help me heal through why am I anxious eating all the time? The only person that's going to do that is me. And that's really hard. And that's a whole other podcast.
100%. Yeah. I mean, and that's a message that runs through everything that I do is, I mean, you are your own solution, and more times than not, you're also your own problem. So like, let's take self-responsibility and let's educate ourselves. Let's have a real conversation around it. And like you said, like, it doesn't have to be everything you make is a fucking gourmet meal. No, like, and it doesn't mean you also have to deprive yourselves of those gourmet meals. If that's something you love to do and you love to go out to eat with your spouse or your friends or whatever, and it's like once a month, awesome. Don't guilt yourself that you're doing that thing. But every other time you consume food, it can be on purpose.
Yes. My coach, he used this idea, and this is not a new or like a proprietary idea. A lot of coaches use this, like a flexible eating, right? Mm-hmm. So if your maintenance calories are 2,000 calories a day, obviously over a week, that's 14,000 calories, right? So there are days that you can, and MyFitnessPal tracking food, I use it every day, except when I'm traveling. I know that my measurements are not consistent because that's just like bullshit. And like, why would I do that, right?
Yeah.
So every day that I'm in my home, I do it, okay? So if I'm allowed 14,000 calories, as long as I'm hitting my projected protein goal, which 1 gram per pound of goal body weight, right? So I'm 145 and I want to be 150, like with all muscle, obviously, not more 5 pounds of fat. So I eat about 150 grams of protein, right? If you're 175 pounds and you want to be 150 pounds, work on that 150 grams of protein, right? Measure that. Eat your protein first on the plate and then eat the other things, right? So you're making sure that you always have enough room for that quality protein that's going to help you build your metabolism, okay? Mm-hmm. So if you can, like, I know when you're coming to my house and I know we're going out to eat and I know we're going to have some wine. So that week, right, I'm going to hit all of my protein and my carb targets, and I'm going to keep that as lean as possible. So I won't have a hamburger until you come to my house. Then we're gonna have right? So I'll be like salmon, chicken breast, right? Like pork tenderloin. So I'm hitting all my macros, but I'm not hitting that target calorie, right? Like I'm not hitting 2,000 calories. So you take all those extra calories, right? So if I had 200 extra a day, then when we go out and have the wonderful chef prepared food and the wine, I have a budget for it. It's like saving up for your Manolo Blahniks, right?
Yeah.
Instead of just going out and buying them and you can't fucking pay your bills, which is totally something I'm for.
Yeah. And, you know, you make a good point with that particular metaphor. Like you paint that picture. Okay, so let's say all week you get really intentional about the money you're going to spend on the foods you're going to eat. So you can go out to eat. Like it's great, works for your calories. Yes. It works for the pocketbook. Like it's all around. It just becomes intentional action.
And then 100%, but also, which is something I think is so important, if you plan for those splurges, we don't experience guilt.
Yes.
And nothing kills momentum and our self-worth like guilt and shame.
Yep. Yeah. And I stopped calling, like when I was doing those going out and all of that, I stopped calling it like a cheat day. No. What? No. Like that word implies so much judgment and guilt. Yeah. Stop it. So if anybody listening still calls it a cheat day, stop it right now. It's a treat day. It's something you deserve. It's something it's
just another day. It's just another day, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And you're so good. So good. So, okay, as we wrap up today, I want you guys to think about your questions around fitness. Think about the things that you're struggling with that maybe you've already started to address, but you're hitting a plateau and you're just like, I just want to ask somebody that knows what the fuck they're talking about. That's what Joni is offering to you guys with this podcast episode. So reach out to her on Instagram. She's at Joni Newfrock. So I will put the link in the show notes for you so you can easily get there. But she's a fantastic resource. And clearly, as you can tell, she's not going to sugarcoat any of it for you. So if you want the answer, if you want the answer and like be pointed in the direction, she knows a lot of people in the fitness industry too. So just see her as a resource. This is somebody that you can tap into to ask the questions and to maybe be pointed in the right direction and maybe help you discover that you might not even be asking the right question to begin with. Like if you find that you're not getting the right answer, maybe you need to have the conversation with somebody that can help form that for you. So Joni's an incredible resource for that. And I just cannot wait to be in her presence so very soon. You guys, she's an incredible human. You want to get connected with her. So until our next show, Joni, I love you. Thank you so much. All right. We'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much for listening to Branded, the podcast. Please rate and review. And for more information, visit socialjanemedia.com. I'll see you soon.